I am sorry, but our priority is protecting business owners in Michigan.
What if the absolute biggest financial leak in your company isn't your overhead,
Right.
and it isn't your supply chain,
Right.
but it's actually like a passive-aggressive email thread between two of your department heads?
Oh, wow. Yeah. That is a painfully real scenario.
Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are jumping into a really deeply concentrated piece of source material today.
Highly concentrated. It's just a 4-sentence business pitch.
Exactly. It's for a service called ApexLink. And essentially, this brief text diagnoses the cost of internal conflict, criticizes the default instinct to just hire lawyers, and then pitches a faster resolution model.
So leaders can get back to actually leading, which sounds simple on the surface, right?
I mean, yeah, we all know conflict is bad.
Yeah.
And lawyers are incredibly expensive.
But the reason this short pitch is just so effective is because it taps into a much deeper neurological and systemic reality about how organizations actually function.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because we tend to view businesses as these purely rational, mathematical entities, right?
We do. But the moment you introduce human beings into the mix, you introduce profound operational friction.
And that friction is exactly what I want to zero in on first.
Yeah.
Because the source text opens with a really blunt assertion.
Oh, it doesn't sugarcoat it at all?
No, it says, if you own a business, you've had problems with employees, miscommunication, conflicts, wasted time, it costs you money.
It's just boom, right to the point.
Right. And we usually classify these things as just like HR headaches, not bottom line financial crises.
Yeah, they're seen as soft issues.
So why are we as managers or leaders or whatever so historically blind to the actual financial cost of this stuff until a pitch like this points it out?
Well, I think it's because the cost isn't usually a line item on a balance sheet. You don't have a spreadsheet column for time wasted arguing.
That's a really good point. You can't just quantify bad vibes.
Exactly. The real cost of internal friction is paid in a currency we call attention capital.
Attention capital. Okay, I like that term.
Yeah, so every leader, every manager wakes up with a finite amount of cognitive bandwidth, like a limited capacity to make high-quality strategic decisions.
It's like the battery on your phone. It just drains throughout the day.
Precisely. So when you have a miscommunication that evolves into a lingering conflict, it acts like a parasite on that attention capital.
I always think of it like driving a car with the parking brake slightly engaged.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Like, it's not a catastrophic crash, right?
Yeah.
You're still moving forward. But you are continuously burning extra fuel, which is money, and halting your momentum.
Yeah, the wear and tear is massive. And it's not just the literal hourly wage of the two employees arguing over, say, a project boundary.
Right, so you're saying the true financial drain is actually happening all the way up at the executive level.
Without a doubt. If you are mediating a petty dispute or even just worrying about the fallout of a tense staff meeting, your brain is actively burning glucose.
Wow, so the literal biological drain.
It is. You are depleting the very executive function required to, formulate a Q3 growth strategy or to go out and secure a new client.
Decision fatigue sets in.
Exactly. And that's why the source text directly links wasted time to lost money. Because an executive who is drained by internal emotional labor is mathematically guaranteed to make lower quality business decisions later in the day.
Okay, wait, hold on. Let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Please do.
Isn't some level of conflict actually necessary? I mean, if everyone is just agreeing with each other all the time to avoid friction, you just get groupthink, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You don't get innovation if everyone is just smiling and nodding. So where is the line between the healthy friction that builds a better product and this, toxic friction the text says is costing you money?
That is such a crucial distinction to make. What you are describing there is cognitive friction.
Cognitive friction,
Yeah.
meaning, debating ideas.
Exactly. Debating ideas, challenging assumptions, stress testing a new strategy. That is the engine of a company. You need that.
Okay, so what is the ApexLink pitch targeting then?
They are targeting operational and relational friction. It's not a debate about the product at all. It's a dispute about ego or territory or perceived slights.
Ah, I see. So cognitive friction focuses on the problem.
And relational friction focuses on the person. And the moment a conflict becomes personal, the company stops moving forward and starts looking inward.
It's like the immune system attacking itself instead of a virus.
That is exactly what it is.
Which brings us to, I think, the most fascinating mechanism in this entire text, how we instinctively react when that relational friction gets out of hand.
The dreaded default response.
Right, so the pitch states, most people go straight to lawyers. That's expensive and stressful. Now, I have to push back on this framing just a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
Aren't lawyers supposed to be the ultimate fix? It's kind of like calling the fire department when there's a fire.
Sure, in certain situations.
Like, if an employee is actively stealing intellectual property, or if there's a severe case of harassment, I am definitely not calling a mediator. I want an injunction. I want a shark.
Oh, absolutely. You need that adversarial tool for malicious, illegal, or existential threats. No question.
Right, so when does a lawyer become the wrong tool for the job? Why does the text frame the legal route as an escalation?
Because the text identifies a much more common behavioral trap. We call it the lawyer reflex.
The lawyer reflex, like a knee-jerk reaction.
Precisely, for the vast majority of day-to-day employee conflicts. So things like contract misunderstandings, severance disputes, or partnership disagreements, calling a lawyer is an emotional response disguised as a strategic one.
Oh, wow. Wait, an emotional response? Because the leader feels like they're losing control of their own company?
Exactly. They feel threatened or overwhelmed, and they want ultimate authority to step in and fix it for them.
But let's look at the psychology of litigation then.
Yeah.
Why does the text specifically call it expensive and stressful?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the moment legal counsel is formally retained for an internal dispute, the whole framework of the conversation shifts.
Just how?
It moves to what negotiation theorists call positional bargaining.
Meaning, I take my position, you take yours, and we just fight over the distance between them.
Right. In positional bargaining, it's a zero-sum game. You dig a trench, the employee digs a trench, and the lawyers are basically hired to throw grenades at each other.
Yeah, that does sound pretty stressful.
And here's the advanced mechanic of why that destroys capital. Litigation explicitly forbids vulnerability. It requires you to build a fortress around your narrative.
Because anything you say can be used against you.
Exactly. You can't apologize, you can't admit a simple misunderstanding, and you certainly can't collaborate. Any of those things could be used as a liability in a deposition.
Man, that effectively acts as a complete systemic freeze.
Yes.
Because if I'm building a case against, say, my head of sales, the entire sales department stops trusting the executive team. The information flow just completely halts.
And that systemic freeze is the true definition of stressful that the pitch is referencing. The entire trust network within the company just shatters.
And obviously, from a financial perspective, the traditional legal route is designed to be thorough, right? Not efficient.
Not at all. Billable hours actually incentivize a prolonged process.
Right, so the business owner is paying a massive premium to drag out a process that is actively keeping their company in a state of operational paralysis.
Which is exactly why the text says expensive and stressful.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the alternative mechanism the source text introduces.
Right, the pivot.
Yeah. So having diagnosed the attention leak of conflict and that systemic freeze caused by the lawyer reflex, ApexLink offers its countermeasure.
And it's a very specific promise.
It says ApexLink Group helps you solve these problems faster, saving you time, money, and stress. So what really stands out to you about that specific framing?
Well, it's the direct contrast, right? The legal route equals expensive and stressful. ApexLink promises to save time, money, and stress. But what stands out to you?
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. It's the emphasis on the word faster.
Yes, speed.
They aren't promising a more just outcome or like a more comprehensive legal victory. They're specifically promising speed.
Which changes the dynamic entirely.
It really does.
Oh.
It makes me think of this concept in software programming called garbage collection.
Oh, interesting. How so?
So in programming, if an application keeps opening processes and allocating memory like RAM, but never closes them, eventually the entire system crashes from a memory leak.
Okay, I follow.
Conflict is essentially unfreed RAM in a company's operating system.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it.
Right, and a lawyer acts like a total system reboot. It shuts the whole machine down just to fix the code.
Which stops all productivity.
Exactly. But what ApexLink is pitching sounds like a background garbage collector.
Yeah.
It's a utility that runs asynchronously, identifying those memory leaks, the disputes, and clearing them out.
So the main application, the business can keep running without crashing.
Yes. So how does this specific promise of a faster resolution completely change the dynamic for a business owner bogged down in conflict.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of alternative dispute resolution, or ADR, you're describing the exact mechanism of why it works.
Okay, tell me more about ADR.
When you optimize for speed and streamlining, you shift the goalpost entirely. The objective is no longer about establishing ultimate cosmic truth and liability.
Right, it's not about winning a fight anymore.
Exactly. The objective just becomes clearing the error code, restoring operational efficiency.
So how does that actually play out in a room? If we aren't doing positional bargaining, digging trenches, and throwing grenades, what are we actually doing?
You move to interest-based problem solving. A streamlined resolution service doesn't sit down and ask, what is your legal demand?
Okay, what do they ask?
It asks, what is the underlying interest you are trying to protect?
Oh, that's a huge shift.
It really is. Because often an employee threatening to sue over, say, a severance package doesn't actually want a 2-year court battle.
Nobody wants that.
Right, they feel disrespected. Or maybe they're just terrified about a gap in their healthcare coverage.
So they have a core human anxiety that is just masking itself as a legal threat.
Exactly. And a lawyer's job is to fight the legal threat. But a specialized resolution services job is to address the core anxiety quickly.
Wow. So if you can just guarantee their healthcare extension for 3 months.
A $1 million lawsuit threat just evaporates in an afternoon. That is how you solve it faster.
Because you bypass all the posturing and address the raw operational friction directly.
And the mathematical savings of that speed are astronomical. You aren't just saving lawyer fees.
You're reclaiming all of that attention capital.
All of it. And that operational momentum we discussed earlier.
Okay, here's where it gets really deep, though. Because the pitch doesn't end by simply saying, hey, we solved the problem.
No, it goes one step further.
It ends with this massive psychological trade-off for the leader. The final lines of this text are, focus on growing your business. We handle the rest.
That is the ultimate value proposition right there.
They aren't even really selling mediation, are they?
No, they are selling focus and peace of mind.
But let's look at that phrase. We handle the rest. What exactly is the rest? Because to me, it feels like way more than just filing paperwork.
Oh, it's so much more.
It feels like they are offering to act as a toxic waste disposal unit for the emotional labor of the company.
That is precisely what the rest is. Think back to how we talked about conflict draining an executive's executive function.
A glucose burn.
Right. The neurological impact of chronic unresolved stress on a founder's decision matrix is just devastating.
Because they're constantly on edge.
Exactly. When you are operating in a state of constant cortisol, you're constantly waiting for the next angry email from a disgruntled former partner, your brain literally shifts into survival mode.
You lose access to your prefrontal cortex.
Yes, which is exactly where long-term planning and creativity happen.
So it's like, you can't chart a course for a ship if you're spending every waking hour bailing water out of the engine room.
That's a perfect way to put it. And this raises an important question about the modern philosophy of leadership.
Oh, how so?
Well, there is this persistent myth in business of the hero founder. You know, the visionary who is also the smartest person in every room.
The one who wades into the mud to personally solve every HR dispute, review every single contract, and fight every single fire.
Right. But sustainable scale requires the exact opposite behavior.
So what does this all mean for the listener? How does delegating the rest fundamentally change a leader's role?
It requires aggressively identifying what you are uniquely qualified to do and ruthlessly offloading everything else.
Delegating the friction.
Yes. The true product being sold in this source material is the permission to delegate that friction.
By recognizing that you, as a leader, are probably not a specialized conflict negotiator.
Exactly. And by stepping away, you protect your own psychological state. And the psychological state of the leadership team is often the most valuable and honestly the most fragile asset a company possesses.
So let's bring this all together for you, the listener. We've taken this tiny 4-sentence pitch and used it to kind of x-ray the mechanics of how groups of people actually function.
It's been a journey.
It really has. We started by identifying the hidden financial tags of attention capital, right? How the brain drain of relational friction actively costs you money.
And then we explored the danger of the lawyer reflex. We unpacked how positional bargaining and that pursuit of absolute control actually triggers a systemic freeze that destroys trust and stalls momentum entirely.
From there, we looked at the mechanics of speed and alternative dispute resolution. The idea of running that garbage collection protocol in the background.
Right, focusing on underlying interest rather than entrenched positions, so the main application can keep running smoothly.
All of which culminates in this really profound understanding of opportunity cost. The realization that true leadership isn't about fighting every battle.
No, it's about protecting your cognitive bandwidth so you can focus on the growth only you can drive.
And the thing is, even if you aren't running a multi-million-dollar business, these mechanics apply to your daily life.
Absolutely, they do.
You have your own limited supply of attention capital. You have your own version of the lawyer reflex. When you escalate arguments in your personal or professional life, just to prove you are right.
Oh, we all do that. The principles of operational friction are totally universal. Every hour you spend entangled in unnecessary positional conflict is an hour you are not spending on your own development.
Which leaves us with a final thought to really consider as we wrap up today's deep dive.
Yeah, I have a provocative thought for everyone to mull over on their own.
Let's hear it.
If you were to do a hard, objective audit of your own typical week, how much of your daily RAM is currently being eaten up by unfreed background conflicts?
That's a tough question to answer.
It is. But think about it. What would your output actually look like if you finally found a system to handle the rest, so you could dedicate 100% of your processing power to your own growth?